Welcome to Let's Talk All Things Art. I'm your host, Julie Whitney Scott, and I have with me today Mr. Louis Devon Nelson. Doesn't that sound like royalty? With a crown on his head. He is coming to the Columbus Black Theater Festival this year, bringing his play, Daidy or Daddy with an I, which I am so honored to be able to direct this year. Thank you so much, Louis, for being with me on Let's Talk All Things Art.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about Daidy or Daddy with an I. This was an important piece to me too, because I don't want to give too much away, but it made me think about my father and the relationship and how that was toward his end. So tell us, how did you come about writing this play? It's a monologue.
Yes, it's a monologue. For some reason, over the past, I've been in New York since 2015, and I've been doing mostly festival work and off-Broadway stuff. And again, I do interdisciplinary stuff. I do writing, choreography, and direction. So a lot of my work will include, movement-based pieces or pieces that incorporate music in some way. And I was finding through the submission process, because we all know about the submission process, it's like you take very concrete times out of your busy schedule to just submit your work in the hopes of it being produced, right? And, there were a couple of short play contests I've been writing a lot of 10-minute pieces, one acts, and then monologue competitions were coming across my desk, and I was finding that my success rate was exponentially greater in the realm of monologue writing. And the funniest thing is I've written a whole play about monologues and how much I detest them in a satirical kind of comedic way. It's literally a play about monologues. And for some reason, I think, especially during the pandemic when we were so detached from society and social proclivities, that, you really, especially when you're writing, you either go about it two ways. You either take into consider all your abilities and you put everything into your stuff, which I saw a lot of writers doing, or you just have the opportunity to just really cut down to what you think is the most important part of your writing. And I think monologues are not only this form of literature and poetry in the theater world, but it's an opportunity to really focus on a very specific story and hone your storytelling technique in a very focused way. And I like to put everything but the kitchen sink in my work. At the end of the day, you're putting yourself into the writing. And this was one of the first times where I was like, let me just kind of verbatim it, but just embellish it just a tiny bit. So it's based on, a grieving process that I took to heart personally. But the twist on it is, again, without trying to give too much of it away, it was a healing process for me. It was because art can be healing. It can be this nurturing kind of ritualistic thing. So for me to write about something that was so personal, it was not only just try and get the story out, but I've never seen anybody write about, how they had especially in the Black community, you don't hear a lot of queer stories that involve the father and the son. I can't think off the top of my head of one, so that's enough for me to want to write the story. And I wanted to write something that wasn't necessarily this kind of gloom and gloom thing. Yes, it is kind of melancholic and it is sad, but there's a certain joy that comes in the remembering, right? The loss it's a celebration of life in a way as well. So the reason why I ended up writing this one, I was just kind of in this box. I know we talk about the box that doesn't exist. But I put myself in one because I really wanted to just kind of envelope myself in my own experience and stop, creating three characters in a play that represent different parts of my personality and just like focus on one. And it was a very enthralling process. And when I go back and I read it, I'm like, yeah, it has a certain cadence to it. There's definitely this poetic structure that I try to put into my monologue writing, but I also like to keep it very natural, like natural words that will come out in a very conversational way.
All I know is Daddy, or Daddy with an I, is a play that really meets the theme this year of the right to choose. Talk just a little bit about how this play
resonates with the theme.
Resonates with that, because that's one of the reasons it was chosen too, because it fits the theme of the right to choose.
Right. I think that's there's a very subjective point of view as far as that's concerned, and I really appreciate the theme and how I address the topic in this piece. It's pretty much. Yeah, it's a very slippery slope, because you want to leave as much to the viewer as they see it, so they get the opportunity to interpret it in their own way. But for me, it was like these two characters, and they are characters. It's auto fiction in its own way. But these two characters, there is an opportunity to talk about something that goes unspoken, and that choice to accept someone for their choices, which, without beating around the bush, I mean, it's about sexuality, it's about queerness, it's about a father who knows that his son is different, and he chooses certain ways and methods to reassure him that it's okay without saying it outright. And then the son, of course, is trying to choose ways to circumvent having that be a predominant part of how his father identifies him, because he's scared of what that will entail. So these choices of like, should I tell him? Should I not tell him? Or does he know? Does he not know? It goes both ways, right? So I think that for me is where the choice comes in, is like, we don't talk about this enough, I think, in the LGBTQIA community, is like, we come out of the closet every time we meet someone new. So like, if we have the choice to say, hey, just so you know, yes, or you don't say it at all. So that's like a constant in our daily lives. Like, coming out it's kaleidoscopic in a way. So there's all these different ways and different places, at work, home, school, church, however you phrase it, there's always going to be an opportunity for you to choose how much you share about yourself. And as much as we like to say, it's not what defines us, it's not a big part of our lives, it affects us in a huge way. So I think that choice that we make every time we meet someone is something that's addressed in this play. It's like this huge part of me that I want to share with you. I'm afraid of how that might affect our relationship.
All right, thank you so much for being with me on Let's Talk All Things Art. People, come on out. You want to see Daddy, or Daddy with an I assure you, this year at the Columbus Black Theater Festival. Thank you so much, Mr. Louis Devon Nelson.
Thank you.
Yay!